Welcome to Fort Worth 148's podcast, where we meet to discuss Masonic topics and strive to build value in the brotherhood. The opinions and statements of the participants do not represent any positions or stance of any Grand Lodge or Lodge and are solely the viewpoints of the participants. Welcome back, everybody, to Fort Worth 148's podcast. This is Rhit Moore, current secretary and past master.
This is Grant Gates, current Tyler and Master Mason with 148.
This is Gabriel Jagush, Master Mason with Fort Worth Lodge 148. And we have a guest today.
Hi, this is Billy Hamilton. I'm Master Mason with Triangle Lodge 548 in Lawton, Oklahoma.
Nice. And now you are now a member of Fort Worth 148 too. So
he's close. He's close.
It's close?
Yes. Well, and that's how welcomed he's been, because everybody already thinks you're a member, Billy.
Nice.
It takes a little while for paperwork. It's got to go through Grand Lodge. You know, it's snail mail through several different stations, so it takes a little while.
Okay.
But it's in process.
So it's in process, but okay.
What do we got first? Do we got news first?
Alrighty. In Temple News, Fort Worth Lodge helped run a blood drive at the Fort Worth Gun Show at the Amon Carter Exhibit Hall, and we partnered up with Carter Blood Care, and we stood out there for about 3 hours, maybe a little bit more, but we got 29 people to sign up. A special thanks to brothers Omar and Will for putting in the bulk of the time there. I came down there, I donated blood too, had a good time, stood around with Omar and Will, and we dragged people in, told them, hey, come donate blood. It was a lot of fun. And please, if you're healthy enough, donate blood. One of the guys at the Carter Blood Care bus told me that this winter they had seen a shortage of blood like they've never seen before. In fact, they actually ran out of blood types. That's how bad it was. So, if you're healthy, and you're not afraid of needles, and maybe even if you are afraid of needles, please go donate blood. On Sunday, May 7th, Fort Worth 148 was also a participant in RARFest. There was a great time. Brother Senior Warden Greg Wright made some great dishes, including, of course, the main steak dinner course, and the appetizer, which was mushrooms wrapped in bacon, stuffed with goat cheese. It was incredible. He also captured some beautiful drone footage from way up above. He brought a remote-controlled drone and flew it all around and captured video footage, still footage, everything. It was really incredible stuff. In local news, Saturday, May 6th, members of the Fort Worth Scottish Rite Valley went to the Texas Scottish Rite Hospital over in Dallas to help with Farm and Ranch Day. Together, they all cooked 1,500 hot dogs in 1 hour. There were many activities there for the patients, parents, and supporters of the Texas Scottish Rite Hospital. If you want to get involved with an incredible way of making the world better by getting kids the orthopedic treatments they need, please look into getting involved with the TSRH. In national news, on April 29th, Masonic Con 2017 was a resounding success. In Massachusetts, the member of Ezekiel Bates Lodge, AF&AM, and Nava Grotto hosted a giant convention at their lodge. Over 400 brothers came to listen to lectures, participate in esoteric symbolism panel discussions, buy awesome Masonic stuff, receive tall cedars and grotto degrees, that kind of thing. Tons of stuff. And I'm not even covering the bulk of it. There were a bunch of different organizations there, and it seems like a good time was had by everybody based on the Facebook photos. I love the idea, and I really hope that we can implement something like that too here. And on, internet news, Manly P. Hall's lectures are now available on Spotify. So for those of you that dig Manly P. Hall's work, have at it. He's got some really interesting esoteric discussions. My personal caveat is just remember to take his works on Masonry with a huge grain of salt, since he wrote all of that like 20 years before he ever became a Mason. So, to listener questions, what is the biggest misconception you had about Masonry prior to entering the craft that was, I guess, eventually or maybe even very quickly proved wrong? But like the biggest misconception you had prior to becoming a Mason?
That's a good question.
That's a really good question. I like that one. Well, I guess I'll lead off. So my biggest misconception of the craft until I was about 13. So this is pre-13. As a young child, I was convinced that everything I found of my dad's with a square and compass and a G on it was actually mine because it had a G. And both my names begin with a G. So that was my first big misconception on the craft, was that the G stood for Grant, and it was my stuff. The other misconception I had was really I viewed Masonry as a exclusively historic society. I saw it as basically a group preserving history. And I very quickly found fraternity and brotherhood, which really fell much more into what I needed in life. So, when I was coming up there and I was looking, and working to get a petition, to me, it was all based in history, which kind of makes sense with my background. That's what I studied in college. So that's really what, for me, that's the thing that I ran into there. So,
yeah. What about you, Rhit?
I would say the biggest misconception was the fact that I fell for the forefathers and all that it was like the perfect fraternity, that it was full of just the greatest guys ever, which, I mean, it has that in there, but we all have our flaws. There were things that happened through my Masonic journey that just like hit me square in the teeth, and it does even today, to where it's like, man, how can they be so, upset or whatever, get so vitriolic about some issue? We're all Masons here. We can work it out. And that was my biggest misconception. Hardest jagged pill to swallow, that while the teachings are, I don't know, perfect in a way, they're very simplistic. The men that practice them, that's the hard part. And, you look up to these guys and all of a sudden somebody's saying something that in your heart's wrong. And it's like, wait, that's totally against our teachings. How can you feel that way?
Yeah.
So
pretty good example of that on Facebook earlier today. A very controversial post on the Winding Stairs Facebook group about bumper stickers. It's pretty good.
I saw that.
Yeah. No, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, because I thought that was very
let's touch
interesting.
on that in a few minutes then.
But yeah, that was my, because you come in, you learn right off the bat in the EA, brotherly love, relief, and truth, and all these great things that you're like, as a kid growing up, that's all you're really taught, is the fairy tale side of life. And I was very young. I was like 22 when I was, so coming into manhood and getting in and then seeing the imperfect nature of people, it was like, oh, that's not what I expected. But it was a good thing. It was a great learning experience, because there's nothing better to prepare you for the world, to make you a better man, than how to deal with those guys that are your brothers, that have different views than you. That, I mean, you may feel in your core that's wrong, and they may feel in their core is right, You got to find a way to get on the level. So there's my misconception.
Gabe, what about you, buddy?
Oh, I kind of, had to think about that. I think there's a couple of things that really surprised me, but my misconception was, I think that the age of everything, because Masonry kind of presents itself as this ancient sort of organization, and in many aspects it is. But the way, because I didn't really understand anything about jurisdictions or how things were chartered or lineages of Grand Lodges and everything like that. So for me, it was all kind of like, well, yes, it's different from state to state, but it's all the same kind of Masonry, is the misconception I had. And then I was very rapidly startled at how big the differences can be, and then also how new a lot of stuff is, things like that. Because, we hear about the term Master Mason, right? And it turns out that Master Masons didn't really exist for a few decades after Masonry went public, for example, that kind of thing. 'Cause, Masonry has been around for a long, long time, but the master's degree / title / whatever is what we would call, quote unquote, an innovation. So I guess I was surprised by how young some of the things in the fraternity are,
despite
having the appearance of being very ancient.
Yeah.
How about you, Billy?
So for me, it wasn't really a misconception of my own. I never had anyone in my family that were Masons. So I didn't learn about it until I was reading through history. And I kept on coming across these people who did these great things in history. They were all Freemasons, and that piqued my interest. And that's what got me involved in wanting to petition. But shortly after I became a Mason, I was talking to my father, and I told him how proud I was, and he had told me that he was in the Army for 22 years, and he was acting first sergeant for the last couple of years, and he said that several of the people that he worked with in the Army had approached him and told him about Freemasonry, but it's like the way they did it was totally wrong and completely turned them off from it. They almost made it seem like it was, it was a secret society, but more like the mafia, where like if you go into a store and you knock your Masonic ring on the counter, like you get an instant discount, and he didn't like that at all. So that was, it's not really my misconception, but that was his. And I could see how some people, if they talk to someone who takes the wrong approach, they might get that some of the people join Freemasonry expecting to get something like that out of it.
I know at one point, Billy, we had there was a young man that had approached me about becoming a Mason. He had seen my ring, and I think I had and seen the sticker on my truck. And we'll get back to bumper stickers in a minute. But he approached me about being a Mason, and he said that his grandfather had told him, and the reason he wanted to become a Mason is so he would not get any more speeding tickets, because Masons don't get speeding tickets.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
And I told him, well, unfortunately, that's not really what we do, and that's not necessarily.
And actually, if anything, I would say fortunately.
Yeah, and he said, well, what is it? And I directed him to our website, and haven't seen him. So that's one I've heard is, oh, you're going to get special favors. There really are no special favors that come along with that.
And right. There's actually a specific term for people that try to join Masonry or do join Masonry for discounts and getting out of speeding tickets and everything like that. And the specific terminology that's used in most Grand Lodges is mercenary motives, which I really like because it just kind of emphasizes how disagreeable that kind of motivation is.
Yeah.
Right. And it seems to me like Masonry should be more about giving, right? It's what you give into it, not what you get out of it as much. I guess what you get out of it is, that sense of accomplishment of trying to make yourself a better person, not necessarily something monetary or anything like that.
Yeah, you get to be happy. What's more valuable in life than being, you know, hanging around good guys and doing good things together? You know,
Exactly.
that has been what has kept me motivated all through the year. I mean, you get to meet great guys, you know, and I've heard that before. I was going to say that, you know, that some guys thinking, oh yeah, we stick together, we don't get tickets. While we may hire, if I'm going to get air conditioned work, I'm going to go to Ricky Cox because he's a brother. I know him. I trust him. So that there are things that fall into place like that. But at the same time, that's not a prerequisite of becoming a Mason. You don't have to give your business to other Masons. That's not what we're doing.
Well,
Right.
and that comes from trust, and you build that trust over time. You know, you don't necessarily meet a guy once in a Masonic lodge and then, you know, you turn over your entire financial well-being to them. You know, it does not work like that even among Masons. Now, I will say there have been times in my in what I do for a career where I am working with a Mason and he recognizes that I am a Mason and it helps garner trust, but I still have to earn that trust with them. And that's, you know, one of the biggest things that I have to do is to go into a situation where something bad has happened to somebody and earn their trust against everything they've heard about my profession their entire life. So sometimes it helps open the door to trust, but it doesn't instantly build it whatsoever. So, you know, some of that's there, but it is definitely a small part of it. It's about what you do, not what ring you wear or what you have on your shirt. So,
Yeah.
One of the kind of issues, because people do look at Masonry as an opportunity to network, and they're not wrong necessarily. It's not the primary function of Masonry, but people have a misconception of what networking is. And, you know, everything that you guys have discussed here, you know, in the past couple minutes just now is true networking. But nowadays, especially with young professionals, you know, kind of my age group, what we get acclimated to or conditioned to, or however you want to say it, is these big events where everybody shows up, and the whole purpose of the event is to network with other people and get business cards and talk over dinner and drinks and stuff like that. And it's a big event, you know. And a lot of times, though, it's everybody in your own industry, so it doesn't kind of work out because you're all selling the same thing or you're all providing the same service. So why do you need to talk to this other person, right? They're not clients. But those events are specifically designed for the purpose of exchanging information. And that is still networking, but it's a very forced, inorganic kind of networking. Whereas the kind of networking that you guys have mentioned is the kind that occurs anywhere, organically, whether it's in your church, in your lodge, at your workplace, for, I guess, maybe for stuff that is not within y'all's workplace's realm. So I think people do kind of miss the point when it comes to networking, because they come in with this idea of, oh yes, it's this very structured event where I'm supposed to approach people. And it's less about approaching people, trying to push your services, and more about being there to be approached, so to speak. I guess, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
definitely.
yeah, in that same vein too, right? Of people trying to use the fraternity to their advantage. One of the Lodge brothers in Arizona, where I was passed and raised, had a story about a guy who was divorcing his wife, and he knew that the judge hearing the case was a Mason. And so during the proceedings, he actually said the words from the Grand Healing Son of Distress to try and, tip off the judge and have him rule, more in his favor. When he did that, the judge cleared the courtroom and told the guy that if he did it again, he would bring him up on Masonic charges. That was totally inappropriate.
And rightfully so. I mean, like, rightfully so, because that is just inappropriate on so many levels, you know?
Yeah.
It's a violation, you know, depending on jurisdiction, it's a violation of obligation. And I actually saw something like that last night, I want to say. It was on the Freemasonry subreddit, and somebody posted this. It was like a GoFundMe type thing. Somebody got injured on, I can't remember what it was. Either he got injured or he has an illness of some kind. But he needs help for medical bills. And the title of the post was the Grand Hailing Sign, or at least the words to the Grand Hailing Sign, which is just really...
Tore him up.
Yeah, it was, you know, and it was just the post was deleted, but it's gone now. And so, you know, the guy who posted it said, "Oh, a brother Master Mason has been injured. Is it not our duty to help a brother in need?" And, but, you know, and then he got criticized in the comments, and he said, "Oh, this is why I hate Masonry sometimes," you know. And so that's, I guess, maybe a case of the Westgate needing to have been guarded a little bit better, because this guy's first response to being told, "Hey, you can't just say that for this purpose," is to say, "Oh, this is why I hate Masonry sometimes." But the post title of his post was the Grand Hailing Sign, which is just, you know, for those of you that are not Master Masons, is a specific set of gestures and words that we are not allowed to disclose unless we're in trouble. Real trouble. So, and I won't go into any more detail than that because I don't want to violate my obligations. But that is the quote-unquote safe explanation.
Right. In the subreddit for Masonry is not a tiled area. Anyone can get on there.
Yeah.
So, you know, you expose that to cowens and eavesdroppers, and like I said, I hope they tore into him. I quit Reddit, which was a sad day, and I missed that subreddit and a couple of others, but you know, that subreddit's pretty good about, you know, guard keeping people from posting the secrets of Masonry on there.
Yeah, they have a pretty good mod team.
Yeah, they really do. Good group of guys. I hope they're listening. Please post to our podcast. So, all right. Any other questions, Brother Gabe?
No, that was just kind of the one question. I mean, I asked just the one question, and that launched us into just one whole, you know, tangent. I love that. But so, to get to the meat of the episode, Brother Billy, tell us your story.
Okay. So I was, as I said in the very beginning, I'm actually a Master Mason from Oklahoma. I was initiated into Triangle Lodge number 548 on November 26th in 1996. So shortly after that, I had moved out to Arizona to take a job working for like UPS Logistics. And so I was still an EA. It took me almost 2 years before, you know, I got settled in, was able to find a local lodge out there who was able to do the rest of my degrees as courtesy work. So in November of 98, Chandler Lodge number 34 passed me to Fellowcraft. And on the 15th of December, I was made a Master Mason. And, you know, it was exciting. I will say that Arizona does things a little bit different than Oklahoma or Texas does. To be honest, in a way, I kind of wish that there was a way that I could have done it like here, because memory work in Arizona, it's really not the same. It's more like, you know, instead of the questions and answers. Hello. Sorry, I have Alexa going off in the background. She just lost connection and reconnected.
That's all right.
Go
I've
ahead.
got one of those
She's
demon
fine.
robots in my house too.
In Arizona, rather than have the questions and answers, it's actually like you attend a lecture, and then you take a test over it. And so I'm eternally grateful to the brothers out there for helping me, you know, finish my degrees and doing that for the Grand Lodge of Oklahoma for me. But at the same time, I feel like in a way I kind of missed out. Because for the longest time, I was always nervous about approaching another lodge because, I know that for strict examination, it always goes back to those questions and answers that you learn for your proficiencies.
Right,
So
and that was like a totally different format then.
Right.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Never really thought of that.
What brought you to us, Billy? I mean, how did you find us? Because I remember the night you first came up to visit, and I believe you and your wife came up and introduced yourselves. And what brought you to us?
Okay. Well, so to be honest, it was shortly after I became a Master Mason. I was only able to attend about 4 meetings before a whole bunch of things happened in my life, and I had to step away from the craft. So I became a new father in April. So you're talking about 4 or 5 months after I became a master. Becoming a new father, you realize that you don't get sleep, you don't have very much time to yourself, and then shortly after that, actually it was probably within about a month or 2 of my son being born, I ended up having to move to Dallas for another position that had opened up with AT&T that I accepted. So between that, I had another son that was born 2 years after the first. I have 3 total kids. It took about 10 years before I started investigating, trying to come back and be reinstated. And then that, because I'd been all over, that became a journey in itself. When I first reached out to my home lodge to see about getting reinstated, the answer I got from the secretary was, they didn't have any information on me. They couldn't find me in the records. So they advised that I go back to Arizona. So I reached out to Arizona, and they couldn't find any records of me either. And later on, I found out because when they do courtesy work, they only keep it on file for, I believe, 2 years before they scrub it out. So they told me everything would be with the Grand Lodge of Oklahoma. So the reason I started looking into it was as things with my job stabilized, my shift stabilized, the kids got older, you can kind of step away and not have to supervise them so much. I wanted to get involved, especially because my wife's grandmother was involved in Eastern Star she died, I think she was 93, and she had been involved with Eastern Star since she was like 21. So she was a very long time person. She was getting sick, and my wife had made the promise that we would be initiated into her Eastern Star chapter, which unfortunately she passed before I was able to complete the process. But even after we passed, that was something that, we still wanted to honor that commitment we had made. But I was kind of stuck in this paperwork vortex that no one was able to find my information. And then, I would try for a couple of months between Arizona and Oklahoma, and no one was able to find my information. And after a couple of months of that, you get discouraged, you drop it for like a year or 2, come back to it. And it wasn't until last November, I decided, I'm going to try this again. So I reached out to the Grand Secretary of Oklahoma, Brother Bobby Laws, great guy. I left a message, and I expected to hear the same thing, right? That, they couldn't find my records, and that my only options were really to, repetition. And I was surprised because about 2 hours later, he gave me a call and he said, I have your information right in front of me on my desk. And awesome. It was, it was such a relief, right? That it's like, I exist again,
You exist again. Was he doing something different?
I have no idea. I don't know if maybe it had it was tucked away. It had fallen under a filing cabinet, and someone had found it and put it back, or something. But it was, after it was probably a good 5 years of calling back and forth between the Grand Lodges to this point in November when they actually found my records.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That's a little above and beyond free will and accord.
Right.
No kidding.
Yeah. So he was a great guy. He gave me, of course, all through this time too. What makes it even harder is that officers change, right? And you talk to one officer, and the next year you happen to talk to someone else, explain the story all over again. But again, Brother Bobby, he was great. He told me, he gave me the information for the current secretary of my home lodge, and said, give him a call. If he doesn't call you back by tomorrow and we're not on the path, call me back, and we'll get this taken care of.
Sweet.
That's fantastic.
Yep.
Going through Grand Lodges can be an adventure. That's for sure. It's good stuff. So
yep.
what got you over to our lodge?
Okay, so
how did you end up with us?
After I got reinstated, which I was reinstated, it was the stated meeting for my home lodge in December, right? The first thing I did after that, after I was told that I was reinstated, was I started looking around for other lodges. And actually, I should probably back up, because in November, as soon as they found my records, and actually it may have been a little bit before that, I had looked up online different lodges in the area. And, there's several near me, and they're all wonderful buildings, full of wonderful brothers. But the Masonic temple, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, that's the place I want to go to lodge.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I walked down there, and it happened to be the night that I was looking online at the different lodges. That Fort Worth 148, I saw that they were having a dinner, and it was for your stated meeting. And so, I got in the car and I went on down, and I believe that's when I talked to you, Brother Grant.
Yeah, that's when we met.
Yep.
Yeah, that was, and I know you talked with Brother Weir for a little while, and we got to know you a little bit, and you told us the story of trying to find your lot, your information, and the lodge is losing everything, and I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, how crazy is this? Like I'm sitting there trying to figure out, okay, is he messing with me right now, or is he being serious about this? So,
because there's a certain point where you're just like, there's no way. There's just no way, right? But it happens. So it's so unfortunate.
Did I hear you right when you said that Arizona had no questions and answers for you to do before you
yes.
were? So, like, I know we can't get into detail, but like they would give you a lecture that you would listen to, and then you said you were tested on it?
Yeah. So they would do the questions and answers in almost like a classroom format. And so you would watch, and afterwards there would be like a multiple choice question with a couple of I believe there's a couple of areas where you would actually have to fill in the answer. So they would test you on it, but it wasn't the rote memorization that you have to do, here in Texas and Oklahoma.
So like you had to score 70 or better or something like that?
Right. I don't remember exactly what the percentage was, but yeah, you had to, it was almost, like you had to get like 80 or higher in order for them to say, yep, you've proven your proficiency.
That's interesting. So, because all the questions, you said multiple choice, obviously are written on a piece of paper that you're giving answers to, or was it all done verbally?
No, it was on a piece of paper.
Wicked.
Interesting.
That's cool.
I like that standard because it's based, obviously, like I have a thing for ritual and for memorizing stuff, but I really like that approach to it because it's based more around the understanding of it without requiring phrase memorization. Because you can do phrase memorization without having understanding of the subject. So,
Oh, that's what I was just thinking. How
the knowledge without wisdom.
Well, the two of them combined would be quite powerful. I'd be interested to get my hands on that questionnaire they have in Arizona. It's always intriguing to see what people do different, because I know our Grand Lodge recently was like, look, our membership's declining because our questions and answers are too long. It's just too much work. People don't have the time for that anymore. And it got voted down, because they were going to cut off the second and third section of the EA and fellowcraft or EA questions and answers, pretty much the bulk of it, because that'll increase membership.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at Arizona, and they're not increasing the membership.
Right. Yeah. I guess that gets into the quantity versus quality argument.
Yeah. No, and that's what really led me to my belief that was a surface issue. That was a symptom of a bigger problem that was going on beneath all that. Whether you do one-day classes, whether you do questions and answers, scoot them through, if there's not value there at the lodge, it doesn't matter. They're going to leave one at one point or another.
Okay, let me ask you this, Billy. How do you have a written test and get around the specific portion of the entered apprentice Mason's obligation? How do they justify that? Are they not writing the actual? Is it not like you fill in the word, or that's my big question on it. Is how do you get around that entered apprentice obligation but have it written down?
So from what I remember, and again, this was almost 20 years ago, none of the secret work was actually in the questions and answers. So that was still done, communicated only in the ritual, but the rest of it would be questions about like the working tools. So it was, content from the lectures. It wasn't anything that would be considered secret.
Gotcha, because there's a lot of stuff in our EA degree that's in the monitor that's in print, plain as day. So you could be quizzed on. I can think of one question like, what's the difference between brotherly love and relief? Because they get mixed together quite a bit. So there's a lot of ways you could have that questionnaire to ensure there's an understanding, and you're not just having somebody become a parrot.
Right.
Okay.
Well, fair enough. And it also depends on, obviously, we know how we have a better feel for how they work over in Arizona, but some lodges, some Grand Lodges say, hey, only this is secret, and it'll be like tiny stuff, right? So just passwords, just grips. And some Grand Lodges say everything is secret, right? So it just depends on what your Grand Lodge says. It's one of those super jurisdictional things.
Yeah, I mean, because I know the Grand Lodge of England is very loose on what they can talk about. So, where you think somebody's divulging secrets, well, yeah, in your jurisdiction they are, but in theirs they're not. So, in secrets, that's a whole nother podcast. I can talk for days on what the secrets of Masonry are.
Yeah, I think in our little book for the ritual, everything is in cipher with the exception of the plain text passages, and then stuff like the passwords, like the grips. There's not even cipher for that. I think it's literally just 3 asterisks or something like that to signify, hey, something happens here. We're not even going to cipher it. So. There's 2 levels of secrecy involved in that one.
Yeah, and if you think our work is secret, you got to get you know what I mean? There's a lot of people that do. You just got to get over that. When I was first made a Mason, one of my cousins, who's a girl, said, came up to me and said, so mote it be, and then had the first question for the grip.
Ooh, boy.
She asked me the question. So it's like I learned real early that this is a Google search away, So we do our best. We mind our obligations, but don't get hung up on other folks, that it's out there on Google, whatever.
Oh, sure. And yeah, if someone wants to fake it, I mean, Google will give them enough information to do it. At least in front of your face. But to me, I found it a little odd that if you're obligating somebody to secrecy and to those portions of your EA degree or your EA obligation, and then you're handing them a written test, it's like, well, that seems just a little bit out there. So that was
right. So unless you define what the secrets actually are, there's a little bit of cognitive dissonance. But if you define what they are and that falls within the parameters, then you're fine. But
and it all
would be confusing.
It all boils down to the fact that we're obligated to do these things, and there's things in our obligation that we know specifically we would not carry out, literally. And it's the whole reason we have to have a belief in a supreme being, because that's the guy that holds us accountable, or gal, however you look at it, that holds us accountable to our obligation. We don't have to worry about that stuff. We do our best. If it gets out of hand, we've got a law book full of laws that we can, it's not something we should get hung up on. It's silly. Let the big man call him on the carpet.
There you go.
And as far as secrets goes, I maintain that it's my personal position that outside of like Grand Lodge type stuff, in terms of jurisdiction and everything like that, there's no secrets in Masonry anymore, especially since Duncan's was published in 1866. So until like after the Civil War, just after the Civil War, there's no secrets in Masonry. You can find a book that has the steps, the preparation for the candidates. It's got the passwords. It's got the words. It's got everything in it, right? But
and here's the caveat: there's no ritual work that's secret. There are still secrets in Masonry. The trick is you've got to experience Masonry to figure those out. I mean, it specifically tells us that in the master's degree, right when the second section started. So, yeah, the ritual work's out there. It's been out there forever. I mean, well before, what was that, Duncan's ritual that you talking about?
I mean, they did exposés in the 1700s, but I guess in terms of the most widely published, well-known version, then that's probably the best one.
Yeah.
I read through Duncan's when I need a refresher on stuff. So and of course it's not Texas work. It's all kind of funky and off. So if somebody does try to pretend to be a Mason using Duncan's, it's going to be really easy to tell because it's all off. The phrasing's all wrong and everything like that. But again, I think that was specific to his jurisdiction. But
yeah,
that and as time passes, the work gets revised. So even in his jurisdiction, that is no longer valid because it's been revised since then.
Switching it up.
There you go. I mean, to me, the real secret of Masonry is the fact that we're not everything people think we are. That's more fun than anything else. We're not the Illuminati. That's more of a secret at this point than being part of the Illuminati.
Yeah. No, we do get caught up in some conspiracy. It's for sure. It's funny.
Man, I love the conspiracy theories too. I love when people approach me about it.
No.
I always get a laugh out of it.
I don't think I've had a lot of negative experiences for in terms of friends approaching me and being like, hey, what are you involved in? That kind of thing. The one negative experience I did have was when I was a brand new EA, and I had mentioned, I'm a Mason now, because somebody had asked me about, hey, what is this I saw on Facebook? So I said, I'm a Mason now. It's kind of cool. I'm really enjoying it. And the thing that they asked me was, is that like the Klan? And I just went, oh my God, no, it's not. And I had to explain, kind of like that Masonry is basically like the antithesis of what the Klan stands for. So,
yeah.
But a lot of people have some really weird, funky misassociations with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had, when my son became a DMLA for his petition, I asked him, when it comes to references, I asked him, ask some of your closest friends to, if they would be willing to sign for you. And he's like, no, I'll just write their name down. And I advised, no, you might want to ask. You should do that anyway, no matter who you put down for a reference for anything.
Yeah.
And it turns out that out of the 3 boys that he was going to have as a reference, 2 of them actually said no. One of them said because he had heard that Masons were involved in Satanism. And then the other one, his mother, his friend's mother would not let him sign because she had heard bad things about Masonry.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Yeah, times are different. And that's the thing. We sat quietly in a corner and not let the world know what we're doing, because we basically been just trying to keep the doors open. So the conspiracies have run wild. Not that we're supposed to be out there combating conspiracies word for word. We're supposed to be out there doing what Masons do and let people connect the dots, and we just hadn't been. We're starting to.
Yeah, on the whole, I found that most people have a pretty positive view of Masonry. I've met some folks that grew up in the Roman Catholic diocese that had a very negative view of Masonry, and we've touched on that subject before. The Catholic Church as a whole feels that we are an organization that is bent on overthrowing the Catholic Church, so I could understand that, but most folks I meet have a pretty positive conception of what we do, and most of the time they relate us back to the Shriners Hospital and the Scottish Rite Hospital, and all the work those brothers are out there doing that's very public is what most folks I meet relate to Freemasonry. So.
Yeah.
Now I'd heard that part of the reason why some churches look down on Masonry is because they believe that taking an oath is against, what's in the Bible. That the very fact of taking an oath itself is anti-Christian. At least that's their perspective on it.
I would like to ask them, how do you feel about our military members? Because they take an oath. Our police officers take an oath.
Mm-hmm.
Doctors take an oath. That would be my knee-jerk response to that statement.
There are other things involved, because I think it has a lot to be an oath that is secret that nobody knows. Because when it comes to, hey, we're going to take this oath, and the church can go, yep, we check off on that. Then that's okay. And then when it's a secret oath, I could be, because it was something I researched vaguely, because the Catholic Church had a beef with Masonry for centuries. They got upset with us a long time ago, but I think it was the Baptist Church that got in our crawl like in the 80s, and it was over, from best I could tell, the obligation thing, and they twisted some Albert Pike stuff up as well.
Oh yeah, I've heard that argument.
One of the passages that is always quoted from Albert Pike is never actually something that he ever wrote. It's part of the Taxil hoax. Or Taxil, I guess. I don't know. Well, I think it's Taxil.
Yeah.
It's one of those deals where somebody made something up a long time ago and ruined everything for everyone. But the chick tracts are great. I get great amusement out of the Jack chick tracts about Masonry. He's got a couple of them, and they are excellent humor, to say the least.
Oh, I was like, what is he talking about? Tic Tacs?
No, Jack Chick. Do you remember those? It was like this and he passed away like last year, but he made these. It's Jack Chick, like chick as in like chicken, right?
Gotcha.
He published little comic books that were designed as proselytizing tools or whatever. And one of them talks about Islam, one of them talks about Masonry, one of them talks about all sorts of stuff. There's one about homosexuality, about occult, about basic gospel, abortion, that kind of thing. And it's all of these subjects that he wanted to tackle and say, hey, like, you're going to go to hell for a myriad of subjects. And his chick track for Masons is titled "That's Baphomet?" ? Yeah, it's pretty great. It follows the story of this mother and father who get approached by police. He knocks on the door and he's like, "Your son's been shot. You need to go to the hospital." And he's in the ICU, and like he might make it, but he has no will to live. He's given up, and they're in the hospital lobby and they're wondering like, how could God let this happen to us? And, we're such good people, I'm a church deacon and a good lodge member. And the minister that shows up says, lodge member, Alex, are you a Mason? He says, yes, didn't you know that? I'm even a Shriner, right? And so the minister is like, I had no idea you were into witchcraft, right? And so then it goes on this, one of those false exposés of, this is, I was a Mason until I found out about Baphomet, right? And so he talks about it, and he brings Eliphas Levi's drawing of the Baphomet, and he compares it to the goat's head to Eastern Star, and he says it's bad.
Oh,
and
man,
just the whole classic religious conspiracy theory involving Masonry, and at the end, the husband and wife burn all of his Masonic regalia and all of her Eastern Star regalia, and then they both repent, and their son is magically saved.
Guys, it's
amazing.
You got to check this out. www.chick.com, and scroll down on the left-hand bar. It has a tab for Masonry. I'm looking at this right now. This is
it's great.
This is awesome.
If you want to read chick tracts on the go, you can even get apps for Android and iPhone. It's great stuff.
Guys, we should make ourselves an app. I don't know what it would do, but
it's coming. It's coming.
We need an app just to say that we have one.
No, every lodge should have an app, but yeah, ours is coming. It's being slow, and I say that not that it's physically being done. The ideas are being accumulated.
So I do think our app should do one thing. It should alert us anytime a new conspiracy theory hits the internet, so we all can read it and laugh.
Like a Google alert of some kind?
Yeah.
That
pops
would
up
be
on
cool.
Your phone. It's like something else to laugh at, everybody. Click right here.
So, speaking of, I went to Haltom City, Riverside. I posted this on Facebook in our private page, but I thought it was great because we talked about the goat last podcast or the one before, And he had the best theory I'd ever heard that he read about of the origination of the goat. So it's got to come up in a podcast. So Brother Oliver, past master of Haltom City, Riverside, he told me that when after the Morgan affair and the political party for the anti-Masonic political party was formed, they would have parades or be in parades portraying Masons as like drunken fools, kind of, and would saddle them up on a goat to ride in the parade. And it was like, that makes perfect sense, because nobody can tie it to our lodge esoterically, symbolism, anything. It's a stretch at best. And we say it so tongue in cheek, like, oh, you're going to ride the goat, like joking around, kind of playing down that whole scenario of us getting made fun of in the parades, like ultimately, hey, look who won out kind of thing, flexing our prowess. Made sense. Haven't looked into it, but there's another rabbit hole if anybody's curious about where the goat came from.
Now, I actually came across an article, and it was about rock bands in Boston who grew up and all became Masons, right? So you have these like heavy metal guys that are now like the masters of their lodge in Boston, which I think is awesome. Mm-hmm. And one of them actually works in the headquarters for the Northern Masonic jurisdiction of the Scottish Rite. And supposedly in this northern jurisdiction headquarters, they have an actual goat contraption that used to be used as, I guess, part of a hazing ritual. And there's a placard on it that says it was used until a lawsuit actually forced them to stop using it.
Were they using the goat in a Blue Lodge? Or was it?
So the story that I had read, because then I started looking at it, right? And I saw that there were references to like Masonic supply companies in the early 1900s that would actually have these goat devices that they would sell, and that as part of a hazing ritual for an entered apprentice during the ritual, they would blindfold the guy and they would make him ride this, while another brother would then ride it around the lodge room and try to buck the guy off, which, I mean, to me, is just absolutely insane. I couldn't imagine that happening today. Right?
See, and because I know, like I mentioned in the podcast before, that I've seen that in an Oddfellows catalog. There was like a whole variety of you could get from the basic cheap, just regular goat you push around, to the bucking con goat, that had all the bells and whistles. But it's interesting if that was actually used in a Blue Lodge.
Yeah, I may have to take a field trip to the Scottish Rite Northern jurisdiction to check it out.
That would be fun.
That would be
for
fun.
Sure. Interesting goat talk.
I never pray for bad things to happen to folks, but I kind of want a hurricane to roll northern part of the eastern seaboard, so I can get some paid travel to Massachusetts and DC and visit some lodges.
I thought it was going to be like really malicious there for a second, and I was like,
no. I mean, I'm always happy for the world. I sure would like a free trip back to Boston, man. I enjoy that city. That is a cool city. And
yeah, it is.
Last time I went, I wasn't a Mason. And my trip now would be much different than my trip then. The trip I took to Boston, my goal was to visit as many bars as I could before the Red Sox game started. And I did pretty good. I lost count at 10. So, it was a pretty good day, but that being said, I've long since quit drinking, and I would probably bounce Masonic lodges at this point.
Oh, heck yeah.
If I had a chance to go back, if I was posted up there for a couple weeks, I know for the last Hurricane Matthew, every town that I was in, I missed the Masonic Lodge by 1 or 2 days. I kept missing meetings, and I'd reach out to look them up in the town I was going to be staying the night in, and our meeting was yesterday, and call the secretary. The meeting was yesterday. Oh, great,
Yeah.
So I never could plan what I'm going to do around lodge visits, but I sure would like an opportunity because I've heard some of the Massachusetts lodges just do incredible work.
Yeah.
So I'd like to go see it. Maybe catch a master's degree. Great.
Well, that took a turn from the goat story.
Yeah. I got way off topic.
Well, if
that's my job here.
You don't need to keep your passions within due bounds if your passions are masonry, right? Yeah.
There you go.
Right.
I tell myself this because, but even then, no, it still applies. But
is that girlfriend thing starting to get in the way yet? Because that's
no. She knows that Monday nights are lodge nights, and so
it's in the relationship contract at this point.
Yeah, and then everything else is kind of flexible from there on out. But yeah. So, and then I added, so I'm going into chapter council and commandery, and she's going, what is that? And does that mean more meetings? And I said, maybe. So, but fortunately, she's very busy and works nights. So, a lot of times those nights end up syncing up with stuff when I'm at lodge, or at a lodge type function. So it works out great. So sometimes having a crazy schedule synchronization or lack of synchronization works out very positively. So
awesome. It's good stuff.
So you guys want to get into some roundtable questions?
Sounds great.
I like that. Well, I mean, we've kind of been doing that, so let's continue with those.
So I mean, I've got a couple written down to where we can get through as many as we can, but with the way we're going, we'll only get through one or two. But I'd heard a podcast again on the Masonic Roundtable about the black ball. So what do you guys think? Should it be one black ball? Excludes a guy, or should it be like we have it to where it has to at least be 3?
Okay. Well, so for the benefit of our listeners and myself, because I'm totally blanking on it right now, a black ball receiving 3 black balls in Texas is how long is the rejection?
1 year.
1 year. Okay, and then but anything less than 3 is not a rejection. Right. You
got it. If there's 2 in there, they're clear to receive the degrees of Freemasonry.
Yeah. There are, in my personal opinion, there are some lodges that tie the length of the rejection to how many black balls have been received. And I think that's a pretty good idea. There are also some that say, hey, if you have petitioned before and you got blackballed, then if you get blackballed again, it like doubles or it increases by a certain amount or whatever. I think that's great. Yeah. Having something that increases in severity based off of repeated failed attempts or larger numbers of blackballs, I think that's a good idea. I think just one black ball is maybe not a great idea, just because it makes it very easy for somebody to spoil the pot, but that's just my opinion. How about you guys?
I think one black ball, like you said, makes it way too easy for one person to take up a vendetta. I don't want any of these young guys coming in. So I'm going to blackball everyone I think is under 30. Or you, people develop attitudes like that. Like Rhit said, not every man in our fraternity is going to have, the best of opinions. Some guys, I know at one point, and this is something Texas as a whole is getting passed. But at one point, if you were a man of color, you weren't getting in. So that one black ball system, if you have one guy that's still holding out to those views, he could keep a man who would make a great Mason out of your lodge. So I like the 3 black ball system. The only error I see with it is if you have a brother who is dropping a black ball because he knows something that he has not expressed to others about a person, he should be talking to his lodge about it, but maybe he's not. And, that's probably more his fault than anything else. But I think the 3 black ball system is a good idea. I really do, because it, like Gabe said, it keeps someone from spoiling the party just to be a sour sport.
Billy, are you still there?
Yeah.
you were muted.
Yep. So for me, I think, one ball may be, a little bit too extreme, but at the same time, I think if someone does put a black ball in the ballot box, that maybe it should at least open up a question as to why. Does anyone have anything concrete that they can bring that may, be a legitimate concern? So I don't know exactly how that would be done. If that would be something to where you would then, take it back and talk to the investigation team before making a final decision. But yeah, I think just one, I think that's cause for question, but not necessarily disqualification.
I like that idea. Maybe like a 1 month delay until people have been able to confer in private.
Right.
That's not a bad idea, because, I've experienced that, people put somebody in a box and they're not good to be a Mason, and they'll drop the wrong color in there just because of however they feel. They're too young or whatever. Their last name's wrong. They're from Oklahoma. And so I was on board with the 3 cube for a long time, but something that was said on this podcast that really hit me was the fact that our cornerstone is peace and harmony. That is paramount in a lodge. So if we could trust our brothers to take that vote seriously, if it takes 3 black cubes to blackball somebody, and only 2 people or 1 person know that this guy's a bad guy, they can't go around and tell people. It's against Grand Lodge law. So they're stuck sitting in lodge with a guy that they knew shouldn't have been a Mason, and they're not happy with it. Peace and harmony's been disrupted. And now they're they're a Mason. Now he's not going to get. So it's a catch-22 in our jurisdiction, especially.
Rhit, it's against Grand Lodge law to discuss an issue you might recognize with a candidate, or how is that written? So say someone comes up and I've known them before, and I've known them to be okay. Say I know them to be a profound liar, and I know every word that falls out of this person's mouth is a lie. And I know he's lying to the group as he's going through the process. Now, our process would weed that out, right? But
yes.
Say I'm sitting in a lodge that doesn't have a process for getting to know somebody, and I see the petition come up and I know the name. What in Grand Lodge law? What is the restriction there? How can we address that to our lodge? I mean, I understand not allowing us to stand up and start running our mouth about somebody. That makes sense, but are we not allowed to say to whisper counsel to our brethren about that? How does that work?
I think it's actually pretty strict. It falls under. It's not electioneering, I don't think is the term, but it's not.
There's
good.
There's a specific article that it states that, I can't quote it exactly, but it basically says you can't discuss how you're going to vote.
My iPad is dead. I don't have access to the law book. I was going to look it up.
Yeah, and if we can
No,
remember,
I've got it on my phone. I'm just trying to pull it up correctly because
we'll bring it up because I was at the leadership training in Corpus. Greg was there, Jamie was there, and I quizzed the guy down about it because I was shocked as well. You know, I'm thinking on the square kind of stuff, but you can't do that. It's against Grand Lodge law. So it's a catch-22. You know, if you know this guy, worst case scenario, hit his wife or something, you know, there's Grand Lodge law, you know, that prohibits you from going around and telling everybody in Lodge that. So to sway their vote. It's weird.
That is weird.
But, you know, so therein lies a problem with the three cube, you know, system. But also the fact that it disrupts peace and harmony. I mean, I never thought of that, you know. And, of course, that's a tough decision because are we there yet? Do people vote on that man's internal qualifications only?
I mean, you would hope so, but that kind of knowing that that's out there, that kind of changes my opinion. You know, on the subject altogether. If you can't, if we are not allowed to talk to our brothers about someone who may be coming into our lodge, and I'm not saying that situation's ever going to happen, but still, you know, if it's someone I know is not a good person, and I can't say anything, and I can't talk to brothers about it, and let them know, hey guys, you know, we may have met him, but this guy is a very, very skilled liar, and I know this is going to end poorly for our lodge. Yeah, then I want one black cube to knock him out.
So I think that you can do it privately. So I'm looking at Title 5, Chapter 2. It's
that's the way it reads, but that's
Masonic not disciplinary violations, right? It's Article 505. 14, 15, 16, and 17 and 18, 19. So basically, one of them is inquire into or in any way investigate, either directly or indirectly, the ballot upon any petition for affiliation or for either of the 3 degrees or on any question decided by secret ballot. The 15 is give a rejected applicant the name of the members present at such rejection with a view to ascertaining who cast a black ball. 16, disclose to any person how he voted on any applicant for affiliation or for the degrees on any question decided by a secret ballot.
17 there's your catch. That's what gets you.
Is canvass publicly for or against the admission of a candidate into Masonry, the reinstatement of a suspended or expelled Mason, or the admission of an unaffiliated Mason. And then 18, inform a candidate by whom he was blackballed. And 19, inform any person, not a member of the lodge taking such action, of the rejection of a candidate. And then it goes on into a bunch of other stuff. But so basically, the trick is, based off of the wording, it seems like you would be able to say, hey, I know that this person did this, or that they engage in this behavior, but you cannot disclose that because of that you are going to blackball them, and you cannot suggest that because of that they should blackball them. So you have to inform them very, very neutrally and very carefully of just that action and not what they should do or what you're going to do about it. So it can be done, and it needs to be done in private because there's that publicly part of it, right? So it has to be whisper of good counsel, and you have to be extremely careful with the way that you phrase it. Otherwise, it's a straight-up offense.
Yeah, and so let me tell you, because I ran through the very scenario using the on the square. Can you talk to him on the square about it? And what he told me is get yourself on the investigation committee. Because if Gabe, Grant, any of you guys turn in an unfavorable, if there's one unfavorable in that bunch, we're either not going to vote on it that night so we have more time to go into, give the investigation time more time to talk to amongst themselves, or they're not getting in. I mean, that's how much weight those investigations should carry with this system we use. Because that one unfavorable, which essentially is telling me how you're going to vote, funny enough, gives me enough. Because that's all it takes. I want peace and harmony in my life. And if one guy's going to come in that, Grant, you think shouldn't be in, it's going to be really hard for me to think of a scenario where I'm going to vote him in.
Well, and we know each other pretty well, and there are some brothers who I don't want to say second guess, but I would ask more questions if a brother told me, "Hey, this guy isn't good for us." I would ask follow-up questions. Now, if you came up to me and said, "Hey, this guy is not good for us," that'd be the end of it. But you gotta know the brothers in your lot and know what you're gonna do. And know, you gotta know guys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and that case is getting more. I would say 85-90% of the guys that come into our lodge are off the internet that nobody knows. So, barring some background check or something, nobody's going to know this guy's character, which is the whole point of slowing it down like we've talked about in the past, to where we can get to know him. But, therein lies the question during that time. If you find out something that everybody needs to know, how do you communicate that?
Right. And I think that's one of the very positive things. Like you mentioned, we have a longer period of time in between the candidate's first introduction to us and when they're handed a petition. That's pretty standard in the TO Lodge movement, that kind of thing. I think it's a great idea. And in this modern age where guys move around all the time for work, that's something that needs to happen, because especially, with young millennial guys, like the biggest thing with my age group is we move for work. We're not at home anymore. Usually we're not where we grew up most of the time. And because of that, you're not going to be able to ask the people that he grew up with, that kind of thing. And so in this day and age, we do need to slow down. And so, yes, sometimes we feel that pressure of, we need new members. And I totally get that. But if we can't get to know him, then how can we, reasonably give a knowledgeable committee report on that?
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you know something or figure out something along the way, after that meeting, text your worshipful master, however you contact him, I want to be on so-and-so's investigation committee if he gets a petition.
Oh, specifically to...
Yeah, and then, because we talk about, hey, no one person just says, hey, this guy gets a petition. When and got one, I talked to about 5 or 6 guys. What do y'all think? You ready? You think it's time? Everybody cool with giving a petition? And all somebody's going to say is, no, we'll take more time. And that's kind of the tip off. Hey, what are we missing? So there's ways to put things in place to communicate to your brothers without violating your obligation. Because, look, here's the thing. There's a tightrope to walk when it comes to that Grand Lodge law. It is so important that every lodge knows it. Every Mason knows it, at least has an overview of it. Because it's a tightrope. And if you put yourself out there, you're going to make a lot of friends, but unfortunately you might make a hater or two that'll come after you, and you don't want to give them the ammo.
We have a good live listener question. Brother Omar asks, so let's say we blackball a guy. What stops him from going to another lodge to get initiated?
So, if you don't mind, actually, I was at a lodge last night where they had that very exact situation. They blackballed a guy during the investigation. He just went to a Dallas lodge, and I don't know which one, but so we're in the Fort Worth area. So he just went to right next to the city next door, was able to pass their investigation, was initiated. Something happened that caused him to question the new brother's integrity. So then they reached out to the lodge that blackballed him to find out why. And when they found out about it, now they're stuck because they're in the longer process of expelling a current member, which takes a lot more than just rejecting the candidate outright.
There is, because it should go into the database system, and ideally when I enter a new petition, even if the guy's deceiving us and put he's never petitioned, when I enter his information into the data bank that we have that connects all the members for Grand Lodge to view, I can only see 148 members as secretary. Ideally, it should hit a red flag down there to where, if he's in his suspension time, you would know. If he's passed, they would tell you, hey, he got blackballed by so-and-so. So, because that's the thing, if you get blackballed a death sentence, there's not very many occasions where they get initiated after that.
Yeah, I would think most guys would go away.
Some guys do go away. Some guys come back. I was reading a really interesting story of one guy's journey to the petition, where he had petitioned a law, and this was not in Texas, but he had petitioned a lodge twice, and he had approached the guys on Reddit like, hey, what should I do? And he'd gotten blackballed both times, and he said, hey, I know this is going to sound like super suspicious because I'm already admitting to being blackballed twice, but I consider myself to be a guy of reasonably good character. I'm fairly sure it's because of my religious beliefs. And not to get specific into anything like that, but in this particular unspecified lodge, that everybody in that lodge was primarily of one faith, and this guy is of a faith that is not that faith, and he was pretty certain that that's what was related. And I think he came back and he posted a couple months later, like, hey, I petitioned a different lodge and they took me in. No problem. No blackballs. Yeah. Because some lodges will enforce things on their level, for better or worse.
Here's the thing: it's peace and harmony. And if somebody that's a closed-minded, initiated and raised first, and they don't feel comfortable sitting in lodge with a certain type of person, that's a crappy roll of the dice. But there's a lot of lodges out there that would have that same guy.
Well, and do you really want to be a member of a where you're going to be scrutinized for your religious beliefs, or do you want to go join another group? Of course, with my personality, I would get raised, and then I would make sure to attend all stated meetings for the lodge that blackballed me.
Just to mess with them.
Just to mess with them. But, that's maybe not the best way to go about it. Oh, man. Yeah. But, yeah, you don't want... If that kind of group won't have you and you're a good man, you don't want to be a part of that group. And that's why there are so many lodges. Every lodge has its own personality.
You got it.
Most of them are pretty awesome, but occasionally you run into one that doesn't work.
No, that's why it's important to encourage them to visit, other lodges, or at least, look at them online, see what the differences are. Go check them out. So, next question on my list is installations. Gabe, have you ever seen one of those?
I have not actually seen an installation yet because that's how young of a Mason I am.
It's awesome.
So, I mean, I didn't even need to be a Mason to see one, right? Because most installations are open, but I didn't
That's
even
my
know
question.
Installations were a thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, should they be opened or closed? Because long time ago they were closed. It was not a public event.
It used to be that they would open up in a past master's lodge. That was something that the installation itself was, other than the guys getting installed. My understanding is that in some jurisdictions it used to be that only past masters could attend that. So that's kind of a big difference. I think it's, obviously I have yet to see one, other than the ones that I've seen online, because there are some that have been filmed and put online and everything like that. I think it's really cool. And it's a neat way to share Masonry with the people we care about.
Yeah, I think it would be great, that it's something I can involve my family in. And there's not as many occasions that I could do that. Not as many as I would like, It's I think that would be great. If I was ever installed as an officer, to have my wife there, so that way she can see that, the reason I'm gone once, sometimes, several nights a week, it's going towards something, right? That hard work is paying off.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Absolutely. I enjoy the open installation. It is an excuse, like Billy said, it's a good way to get our families involved. I know at our last installation, my wife came and, she was my wife was a very grumpy pregnant lady. And she was pregnant at the time. But so she was a little, it was a little warm in there and, all that kind of stuff. But she got to meet a lot of the brothers, and she really felt good about the group of men that I was around that she met at the installation. And so it gave her a chance to come down, kind of see what we do a little bit, and meet some of the brothers. It was a very, very good thing. I really liked it. It brought the family. My mom came. It was fun.
Yeah. No, and I'm with you. I think it's just too good of an opportunity to share, because we're not divulging anything that's in our ritual or anything crazy that's secret, but it's beautiful in an explanation of what each officer does, and really goes in depth with the wardens and the master and his charge, and it gives our families a real good opportunity to feel comfortable with what we're up there doing. Because other than that, it's the funeral. And while you always hear, everybody compliments the funeral because it is awesome, that's a time to grieve, not a time to learn about what. So I think it does provide us a good opportunity.
Yeah, and that's a question that I think we've touched on before. Kind of the idea of, hey, what if we had a 0th degree where people could attend that without becoming Masons or being Masons, that it would just give them the experience. And, general consensus was like, maybe that's not a great idea, because you want the EA to be kind of your very first experience of Masonry in terms of the initiation. And it was pointed out in that conversation that, hey, the 0th degree, the public degree, that is the last degree, the funeral. So, yeah, I think that it's very poetic then if we make funerals, kind of the end of things, public, then it's only appropriate for installations, the beginning of things, to kind of be open as well. But that's just me kind of spitballing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just a very poetic explanation of what Master does and sums up what we do as a whole, as a lodge. And anybody will be able to see that it's good things going on up there. They might think we're a little nerdy, but that's all right.
Oh, we're super nerdy.
Well, exactly. We're fine in our nerdiness.
It's good.
I'll pose this last question and then we can get off somewhere. But square and compass, should it be public or private?
And define.
Period. You know, like I hear
jewelry, shirts, or like buildings, or what?
You name it. You know, that kind of goes to the installation being private. But, you know, that alludes to the post, because I saw the same post y'all were talking about where the guy had the square and compass with what people construed as a racist sticker on his car as well. And it's like, you know, is it okay for him to have a square and compass with that next to it? You know, and you plug in anything that you might find offensive.
I think that the square and compass should be public. You know, what would the Dallas Cowboys be without the star on their helmet? You know, everyone can recognize the Yankees logo, right? It is our, for the lack of a better term, it's our logo, right? It's what people recognize. So I think you have to have that as an organization. You have to have something recognizable that people are drawn to. And it draws people in. It draws people into a building. It brings people to the craft. But I do think that we should guard it. You don't see NFL teams branding, you know, drug paraphernalia, right? You don't see NFL teams branding, you know, racist bumper stickers. So you got you got to take an approach to it. You got to protect it.
Yeah, and that's where our problem lies, because it is unpatentable. You know, that it's I don't know what the proper term is, but anybody can use it. So I saw the other day where they made the beer, the Illuminati beer. I'm sure y'all saw that on Facebook.
The Illuminati beer?
And it had the square and compass on it.
Ooh, interesting.
They're not Masons. You know, so you make it public like that and you give it up. Of course, now the conversation may be almost for naught because the cat's out of the bag. And that's what gets me, is that if times are progressing in that way, why are we not curve? Why are we letting some random beer company use our square and compass to promote their beer? Because people want to drink it now because it's got Illuminati and square and compass on it, which Illuminati is a whole nother thing. But still, the square and compass obviously has marketable value. And we're just kind of sitting back here, putting it on, slapping it on our bumpers or brake lights and wearing it on our rings, and not, for me, not using it to its full potential.
So you're thinking more public then?
It's like guns, you know, the cat's out of the bag. So if you don't have one, woe be unto you, you know. So the square and compass is already out there, whether we like it or not. Especially with the internet age, there's no way to make it private again, in my mind. So why? I don't know that it was. Maybe way back when, you know, prior to it even being Grand Lodge system in 1717, or however that.
Well, so
is, but
this is actually a kind of interesting discussion because, and I'm trying to remember the name of the book, but now that you talk about it, I cannot remember, but it's a book that Albrecht Dürer illustrated, right? And he is illustrating a copy of a book that has existed already for a long time. It's an old Greek book. I can't remember what it is. It's like an atlas. It's an atlas of some kind. And the Greeks wrote it and came up with it and did all this. And then Dürer did a reinterpretation of it. Every page he did in his style, which looks like a wood cutting, even when he was just doing the ink and pen. But in this book, in the copy of the book, there is, on one page, a square and compasses. And this book was published by Dürer in the early early 1500s. So the square and compasses precedes Grand Lodge systems, and arguably, I don't want to put too much emphasis on that, Masonry itself. So that's then I mean, you can ask people when Masonry started and everything like that, but it doesn't seem like his usage of it was connected to Masonry. It was just part of an illustration for an atlas, and maybe he was leaving a hint or something like that, but the context of it doesn't seem to be what we would be looking for.
Yeah.
So, and there are many other organizations that use it in similar ways, but not in the same way that we do. So, yeah. So square and compasses, wailed, like I said at the beginning, it surprised me at how young some things were, and some things surprised me at how old they were. And the square and compasses is one of those things that surprised me at how old they were.
Yeah.
Right. The way I look at it is trying to make it secret. I mean, conspiracies are like mushrooms, right? They grow in darkness, and if we just make the symbol of our fraternity, something hidden, it's just going to fuel, rampant conspiracy theories, to spread even more.
It's a good point. And I mean, also there's the fact, it was hidden way back when for a reason, and we don't have to hide nothing anymore. We're not worried about the church, off with our head, or the king hunting us down for talking crazy. We got rights, man.
Right.
So yeah, let's put that light out there.
Yeah, I think, I think we should take better control of it as Masons, and just like with the post where you have the square and compass above what pretty much, that I'm kind of a hard to offend person, but that bumper sticker was definitely at least poor in taste.
Yeah.
And we need to start calling out our brethren when they don't use it right. We need to govern ourselves and say, hey, you know what, brother, you pick one or the other, but take one off your truck, right? Like if you feel so strongly about foreigners or whatever it may be, don't put that near a symbol that represents me, my lodge, and what we do. I don't need it. Now I think the guy was in Alabama, so maybe it's still a little more acceptable over there, but still we have to govern ourselves at this point in how we use the square and compass. If a beer company uses a square and compass and the Illuminati to sell some brews, whatever. I don't worry about that. What I worry about is when a Mason is wearing the logo, what is he doing? Is he out there selling used cars, bum transmissions? Because I definitely don't want him wearing a Masonic ring, because it's going to be that Mason guy sold me a bum transmission, or is he out there doing right and helping people and doing right by his trade? If that's the kind of man who wants to wear a Masonic ring, so be it, but we need to govern ourselves and call them out. I mean, it doesn't do any good to get upset about it and post a picture on the internet. I mean, that guy might have a conversation about his truck, but I think it would have gone a lot further if the brother walked up and said, hey man, you are representing all of us right now. And I don't like the way that you're doing.
No, there's a lot to whispering good counsel. That's for sure. Because we are charged to admonish with justice to our less informed brethren, and we should in a Masonic manner. Here's the caveat, though, because you have guys that, and you may think it's, that their views are lesser, but they're set in them. And whether you think it's out of ignorance or whatever, and you think they're ridiculing the craft, that goes back to our EA charge, to where you just kind of got to go past that, because I think what Grant's point is, that we got to say something, is what we're lacking in Freemasonry. Accountability is what creates value. So we got to start holding each other accountable. If the guy gets standoffish, hey man, I was, just trying to whisper some good counsel. You have a good one, brother, and go on about your way. But we've got to, there's got to be give and take on both ends, to where hopefully he would, I was wondering that, maybe he'd be like, yeah, I'll get that off of there.
Yeah.
But,
but
you never know.
It's from that master's charge, to keep unsullied the reputation of the fraternity must be your constant care. So, and so specifically in the context of like a racist bumper sticker or something that denigrates somebody's culture or ethnicity or whatever, something that is very deliberately, if you are trying to raise, because in this case it was, it was a sentiment expressing, pride in that his car was not made in a certain location. If you are, there's two big things with that kind of thing. One, to preserve unsullied, the reputation. And then the other one is the universal benevolence bit. Universal benevolence, you are always to inculcate. And are you really doing that if you're going to put that kind of bumper sticker on display to the world, right? Because that doesn't qualify as benevolence, and it doesn't qualify as universal benevolence.
It qualifies as jackassery.
Well,
Little bit.
And here's my thing that Masonry's taught me, is that we're all entitled to what grew him into a state of mind that felt like he needed to put that bumper sticker up there, and that'd be something to be cool or, make him feel better. It's weird, but hey, you go on about your way. If I can teach you something better, great. If not, I'm going to live with it, because it will motivate me to cinch down the West Gate even harder.
Yeah, I'm not, and you don't approach him like, hey, get that MF bumper sticker off your truck out there. No, you walk up to him and you start with, my brother. That's how you start that conversation. Those first words that should come out of your mouth, and talk to somebody. Talk to them like they're a human being. We miss that so much today. Talking to each other like human beings, that it has a ton of power when you do. And in that situation, probably could have solved the problem. Talking to someone like a human being. So,
you got it.
My 2 cents. All right. I'll go back in my corner. You do events tonight?
All right. Texas news. Lufkin Lodge 669 is collecting donation items for the Texas Masonic Retirement Center. They'll be collecting clothing, personal items, movies, medical equipment, that kind of stuff. They're looking for personal care items as well, like toothpaste, toothbrushes, shampoo, body wash, shaving items, beauty products, anything that you can think of in terms of basic toiletries like that. Additionally, they're also looking for puzzles, playing cards, and games, especially ones that have large print. So if you've got access to large print crossword puzzle books, large print word finding puzzles, large print literature, that kind of stuff, that is a huge, huge deal. Books of all kinds, music, and movies are also appreciated. If you are donating clothes, please make sure that they are new or gently used. If you've got wheelchairs, walkers, IV stands, medical boots, things like that, anything that you don't need anymore that is in serviceable condition, please consider donating those too. On May 13th, the Rainbow Girls from Austin Assembly No. 5 are putting on a Saturday evening casino night fundraiser at Camp Mabry Museum. It starts at 6:30 p.m. and goes until 9 p.m. Tickets are $25 a person, and there will be blackjack, roulette, craps, and a dessert bar. If you want to help sponsor this or buy tickets in advance, please call them at 512-217-4064 or email them at austinassembly5@gmail.com. According to the information I have, they are a 501c3, so don't hesitate if you're thinking about sponsoring them. And I'm going to screw up every single name in this, but on May 20th, Anadaco Lodge 176 is having their second annual crawfish boil in Aquia, Texas at the Gin Quonset Hut. They'll start serving at 11 a.m. The first ticket is $20, and each one after that is $10. Each ticket gives you the chance to win a genuine Henry Golden Boy 22 long rifle lever-action rifle or a Smith & Wesson M&P 22 long rifle semi-automatic handgun, and guarantees you a plate of crawfish with all the fixins. They will also have hot dogs and burgers on site for $5. For questions or tickets, call Brother Coulter at 254-707-0542. Getting down to North Texas and Tarrant County, on May 11th, Smithfield Lodge number 455 is having an EA degree. Not sure what the details are on time, but please reach out to them. On May 11th, Hearst Lodge 1387 will be having a master's degree at 6:30 p.m. And on May 11th, Crowley Lodge 1437 will be having a master's degree at 7 p.m. For those of you that are listening today, May 11th is today, so if you were planning on going to a degree tonight or you didn't have anything scheduled, go for it. Find the one that's closest to you, Smithfield, Hearst, Crowley. Go there. Attend. Support some brothers. It'll be great. On May 13th, Whitewright Lodge 167 will be hosting a big community service event. This is an all-day deal, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. There will be a $5 pancake breakfast, brisket plates for $10, hot dogs for $5. There will be babysitting certifications, CPR certifications, a blood drive, a clothing drive, a food drive, and a bounce house. The fire department and the Red Cross will be there. CPR courses are $100 for the healthcare provider level and $60 for the non-healthcare provider level. The babysitting certification will be $80. The event is happening at 101 West Pine in Whitewright, Texas. Check them out at facebook.com/Whitewright Masonic Lodge. That's WHITEWRIGHT Masonic Lodge. On May 20th, now this is coming up soon. I hope that they're coming close on being almost sold out because I want to see a lot of people coming to this. This is going to be the Oklahoma Indian degree, and they're coming to Garland, Texas. So the MWSA of Masonic District No. 9 and East Fork Lodge 650 are hosting a Master Mason's degree conferred by the Oklahoma Indian Degree Team. Again, the date is Saturday, May 20th. That's at 1 p.m. following the 11:30 a.m. lunch. It's going to be in the Black Horse Barn at Hell Shrine, 2121 Rowlett Road in Garland, Texas. Tickets are $25, which includes lunch. Seating is limited to 500. You can buy the tickets at eventbrite.com, eventbrite.com. You can find out more on eastforklodge.org/Facebook. And, of course, it is only open to Master Masons, so bring your dues card and a photo ID. Bring aprons, because they're not going to have 500 aprons. And I think they also said to bring a chair, so bring a folding chair of some kind. For more info, call 972-670-6758 or 214-533-5659. I'm going to that. A bunch of guys from my lodge are going to that. A bunch of guys that I know from the area are going to that. It's going to be good. On May 23rd, Ken Curry is receiving his Golden Trowel Award at Handley Lodge 1140. The event starts at 6 p.m. and will be hosted at 2501 Pollard Street in Fort Worth. So, if you know Ken, or even if you don't know Brother Ken, come by, see him get recognized. It's awesome. He is a very deserving brother. On May 25th, Webb Lodge 1454 is having a master's degree. They'll be kicking off at 7:30 p.m. They're located at 7000 Zufelt Drive in Arlington, Texas, 76002. If you want more information, please call them at 817-468-9992. There's going to be an informal meal after the degree, but the location is to be determined, so that will be solidified a little bit later. On June 3rd, also Web Lodge 1454 is hosting the 3rd annual Web Masonic Motorcycle Rally and Lodge Tour. So that's going to be Saturday, June 3rd, from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. The starting location is going to be Web Lodge's Dining Hall. Breakfast will be provided at 7 a.m. by the wonderful sisters of the Web Chapter of the Order of the Eastern Star. The rider meeting is at 8 a.m. and rollout is half an hour after that. I assume the rider meeting is going to be like a safety briefing, stuff like that, so do show up for that because that kind of thing is important. So the tour is going to be going to Godly Lodge 822, Glen Rose Lodge 525, Chalk Mountain Lodge 894, Heiko Lodge 477, Dublin Lodge 504, and Stephenville Lodge 267. Lunch will be available at Heiko Lodge 477 at noon. The suggested donation is $7, but as always, feel free to throw in more than that. This event is open to both Masons and non-Masons, and the event is also open to non-motorcyclists. All vehicles are welcome, so pre-registration is $10 per motorcycle/rider, or $10 for automobile and driver. And so each passenger is going to be an additional $5. So if you've got a bunch of people that want to go on a lodge tour that day, but you don't ride motorcycles and nobody else does, just carpool. Have everybody bring $5, except for the driver who brings 10. On-site registration is $15 per rider instead, and still just $5 a passenger. But if you're the driver or the rider and you want to save $5, pre-register. So if you want to pre-register, please reach out to Brother Junior Warden Michael Mad Dog Lothorpe, who is the ride chairman. He can be reached at 817-276-9090 or at bigdog@scootdog.com, and that's SKOOTDOG.com. On June 23rd, Bolivar Masonic Lodge is hosting their 3rd annual clay shoot. Registration is at 8 a.m., start is at 9 a.m., and the location is Fossil Point Sporting Grounds at 7282 North Farm Road 51 in Decatur, Texas. The event will be organized into 4-person teams at $100 per person. Lunch is provided. Trophy belt buckles will be awarded to the highest overall team score and the highest overall individual score. First, second, and third place teams will receive trophies. Station sponsorship fees are $150 per station if you're interested, so, please look into that. Ear and eye pro are required, and you have to bring your own ammo. So please send your registration to Bolivar Masonic Lodge before May 23rd. Now, I wasn't able to get their contact info, but you can find them on Facebook, so try and reach out to them that way. And upcoming temple events, on May 25th, the Fort Worth Scottish Rite Hospital is putting on their 4th annual festive board. The reception is at 6:30 p.m., followed shortly by dinner. The keynote speaker is Brother Eddie Robinson, who you might know as a former Major League Baseball player, coach, scout, manager, and probably a couple other roles. The event is open only to Master Masons, and the dress code is coat and tie, so please dress up for that. Reservations are required because attendance is limited to 62. The cost for dinner and wine is $25 or $30 if you don't get your RSVP in by noon on Tuesday, May 23rd. You have to reserve in advance, but you do have the option of prepaying or paying at the door. The reservation is what counts. To make your reservation, either call 817-335-6004 or email fwsroffice@fortworthscottishrite.org with your name, lodge affiliation, phone number, and an email address. You can pay by credit card via phone, check by mail, or cash or check in person at the office, and the office is, of course, at 1100 Henderson Street in Fort Worth. The proceeds directly benefit the Fort Worth Scottish Rite Almoners Fund. And as always, Fort Worth 148 meets on the second Monday of each month, starting dinner at 6 p.m. for a 7 p.m. stated meeting at 1100 Henderson Street in Fort Worth, Texas. The quote for this week's podcast felt kind of relevant given that we've done a fireside chat format episode tonight, and also since we've seen a very turbulent political climate lately. Human kindness has never weakened the stamina or softened the fiber of a free people. A nation does not have to be cruel to be tough. And that would be from Brother President Franklin Delano Roosevelt from his 1935 speech to the APWA.
Great events there, Gabe. Appreciate the comprehensive list of events going on.
It's always good to hear what's going on around the community.
Right. Well, and Billy, it's been great to have you on. We really appreciate you joining us tonight.
Well, thank you. It's been great, and I love attending. Fort Worth 148. It's a great group of brothers, and I hope to be there for a long time.
Well, we're glad to have you. Always a pleasure to chat with you, brothers. So, I guess this is the end of the podcast. What are we at? This will be number 13? It's 12 or 13, something like that. We're getting up there. Losing count. That's how awesome it is. So, this is Rhit Moore signing off.
Grant Gates signing off.
Gabriel Jagush signing off.
And this is Billy Hamilton signing off.